All right, everyone, so it is 2 o'clock, so we are going to get started. If you just are joining us and you didn't hear our first welcome, well, welcome. This is Molly from the Education Department at Reid Park Zoo. I'm joined by Kristen and Jennifer, who are also part of the Education Department. They will not be sharing their video, but they will be kind of behind the scenes and monitoring the chat throughout this. If you have any questions, feel free to use that chat feature. Again, you will only be allowed to chat with Reid Park Zoo staff and not other attendees. So if you have any questions, feel free. They will be answering those throughout the program. Again, I want to remind everyone that this program is being recorded, so you can go back to reidparkzoo.org and view it again, or tune into other programs that are being offered. Your video will not be recorded, though, if you have your camera on. So if everyone wants to test their chat feature, it should be at the bottom of your screen. You can tell us where you're tuning in from. We like to see how far these programs are reaching. This morning we had some people from Pennsylvania and Texas and lots of local people as well. All right, so it looks like you guys are finding that chat feature. Great. If it's not at the bottom of the screen, you might see a tab that says participants, and then you'll be able to find that chat feature on the participant window. So we're going to get started. It looks like we have mostly local people joining us, which is great. We're really happy to be able to provide these programs for you, even though Reid Park Zoo is closed. So today's program is focusing all about animal diets, and so different types of animal eaters, and how Reid Park Zoo specifically is able to provide our animals with proper nutrition. I have a question for all of you. First, though, if you want to continue in the chat box, what do you think animals eat? Go ahead and type that in. All right, this is kind of a trick question, isn't it? It really depends on the animal. So I see some fruit-eating animals being typed in here, different plants and things like that. So yeah, it depends on the animal that you're thinking of when you're answering this question. Animals eat all different types of food. So we're going to be exploring 3 different types of animal eaters today. There's 3 main types. Those are going to be plant eaters, animals that eat plant and meat, and those that only eat meat. Now, if you think you know that special word for animals that eat plants, go ahead and type that in the chat box too, or any of these categories of animals. Yeah, animals that eat plants are called herbivores. Now, animals that eat plants and meat have a special name as well, called omnivores, and I see some of you guys know that term as well. That's excellent. Now, the last type of animal eaters we'll be talking about today are those meat eaters, or carnivores. So those guys only like to eat meat. We're going to be talking about some adaptations that each of these types of animals have to be able to successfully eat and successfully obtain parts of their diet. So if you had joined us for another program we did about animal adaptations, you know that an adaptation is something on an animal's body or a behavior that it does that helps it survive and be successful. So herbivores have an adaptation in their mouth, which is going to be flat molar-like teeth. So if you feel the back teeth in your mouth, your molars, with your tongue, you can feel that it's pretty flat and not very sharp. Those molars are going to be flat and wide teeth to help us and other herbivores herbivores who only have flat teeth grind up the plant material that they are eating. So plant material can be very hard to digest, and having flat teeth to grind it down and really break it up is going to be beneficial for those herbivores. Some herbivores also have some stomach adaptations, such as multiple stomach chambers, where there's a specific job that each stomach chamber does or helps break the food down in a different way. And sometimes herbivores will also bring food back up to their mouth from their stomach and chew it again, and then re-swallow it to be able to get all those nutrients from the plants that they're eating. There's two main types of foraging patterns that herbivores have as well. So foraging is how an animal finds its food. Herbivores can be browsers, which means that they're going to be looking for plant material kind of higher up off the ground, high up into trees and bushes. And grazers is the second type of forager. So grazers are mainly going to be looking for food close to the ground, like grasses or short shrubs. Now here I have a picture of a diet that's prepared at Reid Park Zoo for one of our animals. What I want you guys to do is look at this diet and think about what animal you think it might be for. Look at how small or big you think the pieces are, what types of foods you think this is. There's lots of orange food in here. And if you can guess what animal you think this is for, go ahead and type that in our chat box as well. Oh, I see a monkey as a guess. That's a great guess. Monkeys would absolutely like some of the foods in here. There's definitely some carrots and maybe sweet potato in here with some apple pieces as well. And these pieces are pretty small. They're cut up into small pieces. So the zookeeper who creates all the diets for animals has to be mindful of how big of pieces that they are cutting up the food into to let our animals be able to eat it. So these pieces are pretty small, and so it's going to one of our smaller animals at the zoo. This is our Spix gazelle. These are relatively small deer-like animals in the gazelle family. And so you can see that this gazelle is a browser because it's lifting its head up to reach some of those leaves taller on a tree or maybe a tall bush. But he's also supplemented with this diet, the picture that you can see. Now, the zookeepers aren't going to keep the animal diets you see here just in this little bucket. They're going to spread it out over their habitat. So the animals have to move around and forage like they naturally would. Here's another diet for an herbivore. And go ahead and tell us some of the differences that you see, or try to guess what diet this animal would go to. Yeah, I see a lot of great guesses. Someone, I don't want to spoil it yet, but someone definitely got it right. There's lots of leafy greens in here and bigger chunks of food. This is a large bucket, so it's going to one of our larger animals as well. This is for our Aldabra tortoise. So Aldabra tortoises really like those leafy greens and hay, but they're also really attracted to red food. So those tomatoes and even the carrots, those Aldabra tortoises are going to be going after. We're going to be moving on to some omnivore diets. So omnivores, again, are those plant and animal eaters. And just like herbivores, they have some special adaptations to help them be successful eaters. They're going to combine sharp teeth towards the front of their mouth with those flat molars in the back. So people have been adapted to be omnivores. So if you move your tongue closer to the front of your mouth and feel those teeth, they're not necessarily as sharp as some animal teeth, but we do have sharper teeth to be able to chew meat, as well as those back molars to grind some plants. Omnivores also have to be able to successfully hunt as well as forage for those plants. So they'll be searching for plant material and have to be successful hunters, whether that be for some insects or for larger small prey. So they'll definitely be combining hunting skills as well as foraging. Here's a picture of an omnivore diet, and this kibble-like food, that brown pelleted material you see there, is something we didn't see for our herbivores yet, and there's lots of large chunks of fruit here. So the brown pellets is a special type of chow. Now, it's similar if you have a dog or cat at home, if you feed them dry food, that's that's special food formulated for dogs or cats. And this food is specially formulated for our Andean bear. So our veterinarian works really hard to make sure that our animals are receiving proper nutrition, and these types of chow that are formulated for each type of animal are able to supplement their diet with things if we can't exactly replicate what they would naturally find in their habitat. So Andean bears are omnivores. They especially like fruits and with just a little bit of meat or protein in their diet. Here is another type of omnivore diet. You can see that chow looks pretty similar to the Andean bear, but the bucket has different fruits inside, lots of berries and even maybe cantaloupe. But this diet also has more meat here. So we see lots of small fish and some ground up meat. This is going to be going to our grizzly bears. So the other type of bear species we have at Reid Park Zoo. Bears especially are great foragers and hunters because they have a great sense of smell to be able to find those fruits or roots. They have sharp nails to be able to dig for tubers or like potatoes or food like that, as well as catch fish. So we're going to be moving on to our carnivore diets or our meat eaters. Meat eaters, just like those other two types of eaters we covered, have special adaptations to help them be a successful eater. If you can probably guess that carnivores have long, sharp teeth, mainly towards the front of their mouth. Those long incisors and canines are going to help them grab onto their prey item if they bite down on their prey, and it'll help them not let that prey escape or get away. But those long teeth also help them tear meat or muscle off of the animal once they catch them as well. Carnivores have to often eat a lot of food at once after they successfully hunt because it can be a tough job hunting and animals aren't always going to be successful. So prey animals are equipped with usually adaptations to be able to escape predators or have the chance to escape. And so predators like lions or hyenas, cheetahs aren't always going to be able to catch their prey. So they have to be able to eat a lot in case they don't catch food or successfully hunt in the near future. Carnivores typically have a very strong bite force. So they have very strong jaw muscles, again, to be able to clamp down on their prey item and not let it go. Now this next photo is a picture of a whole prey item. It is not alive and there will not be a video shown of the animal eating it, but just in case you are not interested in seeing a whole prey item, you can go ahead and just look away for the next minute or so. Here we have a rat for one of our carnivores at the zoo. If you think you know what animals at the zoo would like a rat to eat, go ahead and type that in the chat box. This is going to go to one of our special carnivores, maybe not a carnivore you naturally think of. I see lots of great guesses. Snakes would definitely like rats. The snakes at the zoo get fed mice that are smaller than this rat, but larger snakes could definitely eat a full-size rat. But this diet is going to our king vultures. Now, what makes king vultures a special type of carnivore is that they're actually scavengers. So they're not going after live prey when they're out in their natural habitat hunting. They're going to be searching for prey that have already been deceased or carcasses that have been abandoned by the prey or the predators that actually took them down. So they have a really important job to clean up other animals' leftovers. All right, so that whole prey item is gone now. If you want to look back to your screen, if you weren't interested in seeing that. Here we have the last diet we'll show you before moving on to a little bit of a different take. This is some meat and fish for one of our newer animals. Otters would definitely like some of this diet, but this is going to be part of our jaguar's diet. Bella is her name. Jaguars have one of the strongest bite forces in the animal kingdom. So what they're going to do when they capture prey is they usually go for the skull of that animal they're tracking, and they're able to bite down through an animal's skull. Now I have another question for you guys, and that is, do you eat the same thing every day? Many of us probably have a favorite food or something that you like to eat maybe for breakfast every day, like eggs and toast or the same cereal every day. But you probably don't like to eat the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That can be kind of boring, or you might get sick of that food after a while and not want to eat it anymore. And so it's the same way for animals at the zoo. Animals at the zoo get provided variety in their diet and even get treats sometimes too. And so there's a word we like to call for variety, and that is enrichment. Enrichment can be anything new or stimulating for an animal or something that changes up an animal's day and is meant to encourage natural behaviors or stimulate an animal's senses or get them to exercise their muscles. So we're going to be focusing on dietary or food enrichment, but enrichment can be all different things for our animals at the zoo. Here's a picture of our male giraffe, Jasiri, and he's looking at what's called a puzzle feeder. So hanging off that barrier to his habitat, there is a box with some holes drilled into it, and Jasiri has to figure out how to get to the treats inside. Now, giraffes have a special adaptation that helps them eat, and what they can do is use their long tongue to grasp branches, which they would naturally be eating, and strip that branch of the leaves. And now he can do the same thing with these treats in the puzzle feeder. He can stick his tongue in through that hole and use it to grasp a nice treat. It looks like he's about to eat a piece of a carrot in that photo. Here's another type of enrichment for our meerkats. Meerkats are especially good diggers, and so what they'll be digging for is to make underground tunnels, but also for some food that they like to eat, which is going to be insects. Now this little block with some artificial grass or substrate is going to be a new type of thing for them to feel on their little paws, and they have to figure out how to get to some of those insects that their zookeepers might have put in that little puzzle block. Enrichment doesn't always have to be in the form of a puzzle feeder. It can also be the way food is presented to an animal. So here we have one of our tortoises that has to figure out how to get through that little handle on the cantaloupe in the shape of a basket to get to all that tasty treats inside. So again, it can just be how food is presented to animals as well. Now here in Tucson, everyone that's joining us from Tucson knows that it's already over 100 degrees here. And so one of our favorite forms of enrichment for animals at the zoo, especially in the summer, is popsicles. Now, if you look at this otter, how do you guys think the otter can get to the frozen treats inside this big block of ice? Okay, so otters can definitely use their long claws. They have very sharp claws. They can use their tongue to lick through that popsicle as well. They can use their teeth to chew that ice. Excellent, all great suggestions. So the animals at the zoo, we like to provide them popsicles not only for this type of enrichment, but to also give them extra hydration to keep them nice and cool and give them plenty of chances to drink water in the summer. So I have a challenge for you all at home. If you did not learn about an animal that you wanted to today, you can go research an animal that you didn't learn about. You can find out what it eats and classify it as a type of eater we talked about today. We only talked about the main three, but some other types of animals are even more specialized. So some animals only like to eat insects. They have a special name. Some animals only like to eat fruit. So you can figure out what type of animal you are learning about. And you can draw a menu for it or create a special menu or a diet plate for it. And we'd love to see your creations. So go ahead and send them to us at education@reidparkzoo.org or tag us on social media. And if you don't want to spend any more time on a computer, just go ahead and go outside, look for animals around you, and you might be able to see some animals eating as well. And then you can use your observations to figure out what type of eater it is. So I want to thank you guys for joining us. If you have any questions, I didn't see many questions come through the chat, but if you have any, go ahead and type those now. We can answer a few of them. Make sure you can go back to reidparkzoo.org to check in on any of the other classes that might interest you. And especially connect with us on social media. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are our main accounts where you'll see all of the animal updates. But for now, thank you again for your support, and we'll take some questions.
All right, Molly, one question I noticed is there's a question about do elephants eat peanuts?
Oh, that's a great question. So the elephants at the zoo, peanuts are not part of their approved diet. Many people do think they eat peanuts, but they do not get that in their diet. Our elephants' main diet is going to be hay and vegetables. So lots of heads of lettuce, cut up cucumbers and sweet potatoes, even apples, and what we call browse. So if you remember that term, browsers, the elephants get lots of sticks and long pieces of branches with leaves still on them. They actually like to eat the bark off of trees as well. They do not get peanuts at our zoo.
All right, we had another question come in. Do the animals have names?
So most of our animals at the zoo do have names. So some of the animals that we showed you today would be Oha was the Andean bear. So she was that animal with those large fruit pieces and the brown chow. Our grizzly bears are Ronan and Finley. I'm not sure what bear was pictured in that photo. Chasiri was the male giraffe in our photo we used today. And let's see, we have those tortoises. So Herbie, he was our large tortoise. And one more animal, I guess, our otters are named Hassani and Pfeiffer. So most of our animals do have names at the zoo.
All right, we have a bunch of questions coming in now. What do flamingos eat?
That's a great question. So in their natural habitat, flamingos are going to be feeding on different crustaceans like shrimp or maybe even small crabs sometimes, and even small invertebrates, so tiny little animals that are hard to see. And at the zoo, they get a specialized chow. So again, like the pelleted food that you saw in some of those photos, they get fed that as well.
All right, I think maybe we have time for one more question. How is the pregnant zebra at Reid Park Zoo doing? Does she get special diet at this time?
That's a great question. I'm not too sure if she gets a specialized diet. Typically, our zookeepers will closely monitor pregnant animals for their weights. They usually have an increase in the amount of food offered to be able to support the baby growing inside them. But I don't think she gets specialized food. It's probably the same food that she normally gets, just in higher quantities. So probably more hay, carrots, and things like that as well. But she's, as far as we know, she's doing great. And I think we've had a recent post about her. So if you go back on our social media, you can go ahead and check out that video that another educator, Brittany, put out. So I think that's all the time we have for questions. But if you have any more that we didn't get to, you can go ahead and send us an email at education@reidparkzoo.org, and we would definitely be happy to answer those. So thank you again for joining us, and hopefully you'll check into some more programs. Enjoy the rest of your day.